few terms, so this is like a rewind on terms. Quick few things. First of all, lobbying. Lobbying is when people put pressure on politicians. It's actually called lobbying. Interesting side fact, because we couldn't find the politician, but when he left the building, he always had to go through the lobby. So you'd hang around the lobby and grab him and say, hey, I want you to vote this way. If you give a politician, if Stephen Harper appoints somebody to the Senate and it's his best friend, or he appoints, let's say, Gordon Campbell, the ex-premier of BC, as the ambassador to London, to England, true story, we end up calling that patronage. So patronage is when you give a buddy a nice sweet gig. Good job. Two more quick things. Why do people vote with their parties in the House of Commons? Because there's a person called the party whip who's telling them how to vote, and if they don't vote that way, they'll kick them out of the party. And if you're not in the party, you don't get money in the next election, you don't. So it's a party whip. And I'm going very quickly. A free vote is very rare, but it's when politicians are told you don't, the party doesn't care, vote the way you want to on a question in a debate. Sometimes they open it up, they call it a free vote, which allows people to vote the way they want. Did I miss anything else out there? No? What's that? Special interest groups are a group like Greenpeace. Sorry, good question. A lobbying group that has one special interest. So Greenpeace might be fighting for the environment. The oil and gas industry will be fighting for, they want to kill the environment. Sorry, they want to be good for business. So, SPCA is fighting for animals. The special interest groups have one thing to work for. All right, there's an extra on, we'll just call that free government terms we forgot. And now, we're going to come over here. Was that bouncy for you? That doesn't matter. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's what you're not getting.
There are messages in the office for Kayla McNicholas, Jeremy Kroon,
I love announcements.
Darren Kincroft, Luca Bavanda, Jacob Kirschman, Kaylee Smith, Chris Fisher, Klein Borley, Tegan Litke, Cassandra Bruce, Caleb Olafson.
Seriously?
Linnea Kamadova.
It would have been quicker to say, would the following students not come to the office?
Liam Cole.
See? All right. We're going to start, in spite of that, we're going to talk our last section, Constitution and the Charter. The Constitution in Canada the first one was called the BNA Act. And the BNA Act is Socials 10, so none of you remember it. It's the British North America Act. And a Constitution is the rules about, are you kidding me? The rules about... the rules about the rules. They tell us how laws are made, they tell us who can vote, they tell us importantly what levels of power governments have, so what provinces can do and what the feds can do. Those are jurisdictions, they make those decisions, okay? And Canada had its constitution in Britain, it was on, I always said it was on grandma's fridge, from 1867 to about 1981, 1980. And then Trudeau promised to bring it home. Who was he bringing it home for? Quebec, good answer, because Quebec was going to have a referendum, Sovereignty Association, to separate, and Trudeau said, don't go, well, shut up! Please! Okay, I feel like Quebec. Quebec was going to separate. Trudeau said, don't go, we'll bring the new rules home, you'll be a distinct society, we'll give you some powers, it's all good. So they brought the Constitution home, it was called the Canada Constitution Act. And when they brought the Constitution home, Quebec was really pissed off because they had the amending formula, and in the amending formula, which is of course the formula for change, it said 7 provinces with more than 50% of the population. That was the formula to change a constitution. It's got to be hard to change a constitution. Problem is Quebec wanted it to say 7 provinces including Quebec, and it didn't. So Quebec was angry because they couldn't change the constitution, and it didn't specifically say you're a distinct society. So Quebec actually didn't sign the constitution, and interesting fact, still hasn't. Still hasn't signed it. Within that constitution, to make the provinces happy, Trudeau also included the notwithstanding clause. And the notwithstanding clause is not about drunk Santa. It is in fact, see what I did there? It is in fact meaning that a government can pass a law that overrides the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, overrides the Constitution. I'm going to talk about this in a second, but that allowed Quebec, for instance, to pass Bill 101. We're going to talk about the Charter here, and with the Charter we have our rights entrenched in the Constitution, which means that to change our rights, you can't just vote in Parliament. To change our rights, you got to have 7 provinces agree, hey, let's take away their rights. So if it's entrenched, it's hard to change, but provinces can pass a law using the notwithstanding clause. If they do, they've got to repass it every once in a while. They've got to tell everybody, hey, we're trumping on your rights. Apparently in Quebec, that's okay. With Bill 101, they keep repassing it. All provinces have used this at some point in time. Okay? Amending formula notwithstanding clause. If we're just talking provincial exam prep, which we are, they love themselves this stuff, don't they? If you look at every provincial exam, one or both of these appears consistently. Consistently. All right, when it comes to the charter, you've got a whole bunch of rights. Good morning, everyone. Just in case you're concerned that I'm filming this outside of school or outside the wrong hours, you'll note that the clock says 8:25 a.m. Friday, June the 13th. So we're all good. Everything's fine. Nothing wrong here. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Charter and Rights and Freedoms is, as you know, entrenched in the Constitution. And if something's entrenched, it's really hard to change. Really hard to change. Canada actually had a Bill of Rights. A guy named Diefenbaker passed it, and we talked about this briefly in the 1960s. The problem with the Bill of Rights, it listed all these great rights Canadians had, but because it was just an act of Parliament, it just took an act of Parliament to change people's rights. So we could just get rid of them like that. Whereas the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which was put in the Constitution by Trudeau and Canada at the time and provinces, it meant that in order to change your rights, you had to change the Constitution, which involves an amending formula of 7 provinces, etc., etc. So much harder to change, and it's there. Now, just a quick review, there's 3 levels of government. There's legislative. Those are the guys who pass the laws, the MPs, okay, the senators. They're the ones who do the work in the trenches. The executive, which is the prime minister, premier, and their offices, the governor generals included, they make most of the decisions, and then the legislatures do the dirty work for them. And there's another group you're always forgetting, and it's the judiciary. It's a big word. Judicial, the judges. And the Charter of Rights and Freedoms really gives great power to the judiciary in that if government passes a law, now judges can actually say, hey, that law goes against your rules about the rules. It goes against the Constitution. And the Charter is one of those things that says, hey, you've overridden you've taken away people's rights. You've taken away people's rights, so that law can't exist. They can strike down a law. That really is key, and unless they use a notwithstanding clause. So judges can now strike down laws. In fact, they've just done it, or they're in the process of doing it when it comes to minimum sentencing, for instance, for some firearm possession laws. They've struck those down. They said that goes against the Charter. And just a quick reminder, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects our rights, but it protects our rights from government taking our rights away. If you go into a store and somebody's treating you unfairly, or you get kicked out of an apartment building, or you can't go to a school because of your gender or something, if that school's a private school, or if that school's a university, a private college, the Charter doesn't protect you. The Charter does protect you from government, protects you from police overreach, protects you from all kinds of things, but it has to be government. There's the last piece here is there's different types of rights, as you know. We talk about democratic rights, right to vote, right to run for election. Legal rights, most of you know these, they've been read to you a number of times. Right to a lawyer, right to remain silent. Language rights, you can do this in English or in French in Canada. That includes language educational rights. This is why we have Entrelac. Mobility rights. You have the right to move to Alberta to get a job. They can't keep you from moving to Alberta in case you're going to collect welfare. And we've talked about that story in the 1930s of the family, poor family from Saskatchewan, who came to BC and then went back. They couldn't get Pogie anywhere because they didn't live in that province. Fundamental freedoms, that's freedom of religion. You can believe what you want to believe. You can assemble. Those are key. And then finally, equality. These rights are applied equally. The only last piece I'm going to mention is there is a rider on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that not many people know or understand, and it's that First Nations peoples don't lose any extra rights they might have. So it is possible, for instance, for a First Nations person to have the right to, say, hunt or fish out of season according to the law of the land, but they have that right and it's beyond, and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms wouldn't cause a situation where they might lose that. Anyhow, that's the charter. Hard to change, gives judges power and protects you from government. I think we're actually finished now. And there was no muffins here, but there was bacon.